Hey guys, hope you are keeping well. On this video I will be talking about the fourth episode of the first season of Amazon's Upload. The episode is called The Sex Suit. So this is from Greg Daniels, and sort of funny timing actually, this show coming out with it being like a sci-fi comedy, because you wait for two sci-fi comedies from Greg Daniels and they come or you wait for one, sorry, I've totally butchered that phrase. You wait for one and they come along in twos. I've probably still butchered it, to be fair, but it's something like that. I know they say about London buses, but that's because actually this coming Friday on Netflix, so the rival streaming service, you have another sci-fi comedy which is from Greg Daniels as well, and that is of course Space Force, which does sound promising, particularly because of the cast. You've got a big name cast: Steve Carell and John Malkovich, Lisa Kudrow, bunch of other people. So that is one to mark down and get excited about. That's this coming Friday. That starts on Netflix, so freely available. I'm not sure actually if I'll cover that, because if it does, kind of tip more into being like very funny, then obviously it may well be good because it's from Greg Daniels and there's obviously promise there, but it it may fall under the sort of thing where I may not have much to talk about if I did review the episodes, which is not a knock on it. It can still be very funny, very good, but it might not leave me with much to talk about for reviews. But I'll see how it goes. I mean, once I've watched the first couple of episodes, I'll get a feel for it and see if there's maybe potential for reviews. But I just thought that was worth mentioning because of course that's Greg Daniels as well, and a similar sort of thing, and he has one hell of a track record with shows like The Simpsons, The Office and Parks and Recreation. So we'll see if he can add to that success this coming Friday with Space Force. But I better talk about Upload, unfortunately, because sadly this show has kind of whittled away into almost nothing. From a promising opening, I was positive on the first episode. Second episode, I was a bit more mixed on, but I was still enjoying it enough. And then the third episode, the funeral one, I really wasn't enjoying too much. And I think this episode is even weaker, though I think it has the opposite problem. I think the funeral one, there was plenty going on. It's just that I wasn't that into much of it. This one, it's almost like the opposite. I mean, it doesn't drag because it's only 24 minutes anyway, but it did kind of bore me. It did feel like nothing was happening at times almost. And I think one of the reasons for that is because it seems to be just going through like these familiar type beats, and not adding that much to it. And I think there's a problem in this episode where it has definitely tipped further into the comedy now, so there's not that mixture of the two genres like there was in the first episode. And I think that's a flaw for two reasons. I think it's a flaw, one, because actually the comedy isn't that good at this stage, because actually the comedy was pretty much working for me in the first episode, but it's become very lame as we've gotten more into it. So it's an issue because of that, but it's also an issue because it does distract from the other potentially good things, because there's definitely room for this to get a balance of a straight up sort of sci-fi and you've obviously got the relationship with Nora and Nathan, which had potential. And then you could sort of blend that in with the comedy. I think there was a mixture to kind of combine the two a bit more, but I think when you watch an episode like this, it seems as though pretty much every scene is kind of played for laughs. So I think that's a disappointment. But also you still get these odd sort of scenes where it's like somewhere in the middle, or that seems to be what they're going for, and the balance just isn't there, because there's a scene in this episode which is meant to be a pretty big scene for Nathan, because Nora like obviously visits him, and she shows him around more of the place and the different areas, and she takes him to like this particular section, and it's called like the 2 gigawatts, and they go into this room, and you've got this kid like reading a Harry Potter book, and I didn't actually get the gag about the magic, because Nathan says, "Oh, there's magic in Harry Potter books," and the kid kind of questions it, like, "There's magic in there," and I didn't really get what the gag was, unless it's, I mean, maybe it's just that he hasn't gotten to the parts that are magic, but I mean, it's Harry Potter, so it's pretty clear from the start, unless he's like very early into the first book or something. But the whole thing with the kid is that he comes from a poor like family. He doesn't have a lot of money, so what happens is he keeps freezing every so often, because there's not enough money to like keep him going. So it's another kind of like class type metaphor, and so maybe that's why he hasn't gone far enough into Harry Potter. But Nathan obviously feels sorry for the kid, and kind of speaks up for him, says, well, there should be a way to help him, and it feels out of kilter with then you get this like naked guy running around, and he's got no penis, and that's definitely played for laughs, not just because it's a naked guy with no penis, but because Nathan then starts talking about, well, someone should give this guy a penis, and then he kind of gets this preachy sort of speech where it says, maybe this can be my purpose, because he's been telling Nora about how he doesn't have a purpose. And it's this odd sort of mix where even the way he delivers that line, it feels kind of like it is being ironic. And I think that's definitely a scene where I think they're almost unsure of what they were going for. Certainly they're going for some laughs, but it does feel like they were going for something a bit more serious as well. Or at least so it's a character beat for Nathan, but it felt really off to me. And I do think some of like the crude humour is starting to get really annoying. It just stands out a bit too much. It just feels like they're too desperate to like shove it in your face. And yeah, I think just all that penis talk, it just felt very sort of like in your face. Not a nice image there, me saying in your face and this penis talk. Sorry, folks. But yeah, very crude, very, very cheap and vain. And of course, that's a big theme in this episode, because Nathan is continuing to feel kind of withdrawn from Ingrid and questioning their relationship, and she apparently misses the intimacy, and they haven't been intimate since he was uploaded, and of course that's a possibility in this afterlife. And I think, again, as I was saying in the last episode, Ingrid is just so one note, just so kind of a stereotypical, like, shallow kind of character you see in a sitcom, and that's about it. And it just feels like they're sort of sucking that well dry, really. So she sets up an interview with Vogue for her and Nathan, and again, it's just this awkward thing where the whole interview is based on like a relationship when someone's been uploaded, and obviously the other partner is still alive, and nothing much happens in that scene really, but it's just playing more of these like awkward beats where she's just being shallow, and Nathan doesn't feel very much like connected to it, and you can see he's getting more and more like isolated from Ingrid. But they're kind of trying to set up like their first intimate moment since the upload, and we hear that you can obviously have like sex suits that arrange this in Woodhaven. So later on, Ingrid actually surprises Nathan. She like puts on one of these sex suits so she can actually appear and be intimate with him in this place. So she's actually doing it in the bathroom, and this is another scene that had some potential, because Nora happens to show up to her shift just as this is like getting going, and you get this other guy who's like kind of the other angel, the one doing the other shift, like the night shift, and he's been all like crudy saying, oh, you showed up in just the time because Nathan's like super hot girlfriend to surprise him with a hot suit, with a sex suit, and there's a bunch of like kind of crude gags from him, but Nora obviously she's starting to get closer to Nathan, and is obviously uncomfortable seeing this, and like, oh, because he almost thought maybe that they were on the verge of splitting up, but what basically happens is then even though Nathan at first appears to be into it and they're about to have sex, at the crucial moment he can't get it up. So more interestingly, and I guess it is quite funny, Ingrid like just looking at his dick going, tech problems. But again, they really hammer it home, the kind of crude type humour. And eventually Nora comes along, and it's the first time she's met Ingrid, I think. And Ingrid's being her normal kind of sort of brash, sort of rude self. But then you get this sort of important moment with Nora and Nathan, because Ingrid gets distracted because her cat's basically playing up in the bathroom, so she has to go and deal with that. So obviously the version of Ingrid in this scene is like frozen why she deals with the cat. So Nora takes this opportunity. She actually throws like the blanket over her, because she said, I can't really see what the problem is, so we'll have to do some like looking into it. So she throws the blanket over the head, and she uses this chance to like sort of turn Nathan on, and she basically does it by just touching him and talking in a seductive sort of way, and that does the trick. That sort of Nathan, it works. He's erect basically, and and Ingrid is pleased to say, oh, it works. So they do end up having sex, but of course the important detail is then it was actually Nora who got him hard, got him excited. But yeah, it's a pretty lame episode. That sort of stuff, which you think should be big moments, it doesn't really land that well, and we're sort of not getting enough Nora and Nathan in a way, because that is the best stuff. I think another thing with this show is then it is starting to feel like they're just playing up gimmicks in a way, because you get a lot of like smaller examples of the sort of technology of this world, and obviously world building is important in this sort of series, but I think they just jump around and they don't really spend a lot of time with each one, so it just feels like it is a sort of a gimmick rather than it's anything that important. So I thought, like at the start of the episode where like the rich guy Dave, he's like treating Nathan to golf, and at one point he like calls for Arnold Palmer to appear, who I'm assuming is a famous golf player, and he appears or like a hologram, a projection of him, and just stuff like that. It just feels like this quirky kind of like gimmick rather than anything that's really that important to the plot or characters. And the episode ends with more of like, what is it, Cousin Fran? I think she's like Nathan's cousin or something, who we saw question Ingrid at the funeral. She continues her sleuthing, and she actually goes to the shop where Nathan went to before his accident, and she wants like the security footage. She demands it. Now, I'm not sure it's that realistic that they would hand it over to her, but, you know, whatever. I guess that needs to be the case to me, because there's sort of a gag where she talks to like an automated system, and this system keeps saying, well, there's no physical manager around, because she keeps demanding the manager. I'm like the manager. So she has to go through this whole process, but she eventually gets the tape, gets the the footage, and the episode actually ends with her playing it, and she does notice then, as Nathan's going into the shop, she spots Ingrid outside in like beside the car, and she sees her like fiddling with something on the car and looking in, looking I think to make sure Nathan doesn't see her. So yeah, looks very suspicious. Looks like Ingrid maybe had a part in what happened to him, because of course the car sort of malfunctioned and led to the crash. So yeah, it's almost like Ingrid set that up and wanted him dead for some reason. So there you have it. But I think this is frustrating, because I think that investigation into what actually happened to Nathan could be like quite a juicy little plot detail, but it just feels like, again, it just feels like a quirky little thing, because Ingrid is very much like this comedy sort of character, and it feels like that they could do something interesting with that, but again, because it's a small little moment at the end, it just doesn't really grab you at the moment. And again, I don't necessarily have much of an issue with this going full-blown comedy, but the comedy just isn't very good, I don't think. It's pretty lame, I think, and it is a shame, I think, really, that then they're not getting more of a balance, but Yeah, forgettable episode, I have to say. So I am considering now kind of dropping this, at least for reviews. But I think I might watch one more, give another one a go, because then I'm sort of halfway through, because episode 5 of 10. And hopefully if things pick up, but at this point I don't think it's not looking likely based on the last two. But we'll see. That's episode 4 of Upload. So if you've been watching along at home on Amazon, then please let me know what you thought. Feel free to disagree with my thoughts. What do you think of some of the comedy? Are they getting a good balance between an interesting sci-fi show and that comedy stuff? What do you think about some of the characters? But thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.